going on, guys? Welcome to LowKick MMA Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Ryan Galloway, and joining me as always, Jordan Ellis. Jordan, what do you think of the fights we just had this past weekend, mate?
It turned out okay in the end. I think the actual card itself is probably the worst card of the year so far in terms of who's on the card. And we had, we obviously the co-main event fell out the day before as well, which was a big disappointment. So, but yeah, we had some good moments. Main event disappointed, but yeah, it was better than I expected it to be. I was thinking I might just skip this one, but then in the end, I ended up staying up and watching it, and there was some good moments, so I'm glad I did.
There was plenty of finishes, especially on that main card. We only had two decisions there. We'll speak a little bit about the co-main falling out, I imagine, later when we get to previewing UFC 260. But we'll jump straight into the main event then. And you're right, it was a bit disappointing, wasn't it? Kind of a showcase fight for Holland to do something big in, and he really didn't deliver at all. And his shtick of speaking in between fights and stuff, it was hilarious. It was quite funny for the first couple of rounds. But towards the end of the fight, me personally felt like it was getting a bit old. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, it's not funny when you're losing and you're losing bad. And the thing about that fight is, I felt like Holland could have won that fight. Like I don't think he was outmatched. I don't think Derek Brunson had a particularly amazing performance where he weren't able to hang with him. I just think Dana White said yesterday that he thinks he had like a mental breakdown, and I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that I do think the moment got the best of him, and being in the main event, he was concentrating on all this other stuff rather than the actual fight. And if the fight weren't that complicated, he could have won the fight. But as soon as the fight was on the feet, he looked like he was about to finish Brunson every time he started throwing combos, but he just refused to try and stand up. It was a really weird one from Kevin Holland, and I'd be glad to see him go back down the card and work his way back up to a main event. Because would you trust him in a main event again? Because that was a poor performance, and it was a non-performance really. He didn't show up, and he refused to compete. It was like he just almost accepted the loss. He's like, oh, I've had 5 on the bounce. I'm due a loss, and I'll take my loss here. Which is just, there was lots of weird things going on, which are red flags in terms of someone who a lot of people were saying this is the next thing to contender, a potential middleweight champion. No, I don't think so. I think a lot of people will be jumping off that train now, and he's got a lot of work to do. But not to take away from Brunson, he did his job. He turned up. He dominated another young contender, and well done to him. He'll get a big fight now, which he deserves.
Yeah, and in that second round, when Holland started the round strong, almost put him out on the feet, staggered him, Brunson just went to his takedowns, which was the big theme of the fight. He managed to get all the takedowns he shot, pretty much. Aside from in the fourth round, I believe, he shot a couple and wasn't able to get them. But one thing that I really noticed was Holland didn't seem gassed at all in the whole fight. He seemed like he had loads of energy. He just couldn't put anything together. He just kept getting put on the ground. I don't know if it was a moment thing. We don't know if the best Kevin Holland could have been Derek Brunson. Let's look at the last 5 wins he had. He had that shocking victory over Jacare, that crazy knockout. Perfect performance there. Before that, he fought 3 debuting fighters from memory, and Darren Stewart, who was a close fight, wasn't it? Wasn't it a split decision, that one? So really, he hasn't really proved that he can take out these top guys, aside from Jacare, but that knockout was what it was. So I don't know if Holland on his best day, without the talking, could beat Brunson. So I'm not signing up to this theory that the pressure got to him or something. I just don't know, and especially the size difference. He came in underweight. He's talking about going down to 170 now. Maybe that's a good move. He'd be extremely long in that weight class. But yeah, it might have been something else. Who knows?
Yeah, well, the thing was, I think he could have beat Brunson just off the fight itself. I think Brunson by the third round was spent. He didn't really have any energy in his punches. The takedown attempts weren't necessarily like it weren't epic wrestling that was getting him into these positions and keeping him there. Holland refused to try off his back. It was so either Holland's got zero off his back, which is a possibility, or he just, I don't know, he was just more interested in laughing and joking, and it was all very weird. And yeah, I did think Brunson, he gave a good performance, but I don't think it was anything particularly special. And I thought Holland, if he just tried a bit more, he could have won the fight. And that's the sad thing, really, because as you said, he was full of energy, he was full of beans in the fight. he could probably go backstage and do a few rounds on the pads. He weren't spent, and he left it in the cage. And they always say, don't leave it in the cage. Pour your heart out, pour everything you've got into this fight. And he just didn't do that, and it was disappointing for that reason.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you there. Finally, do you think that Holland after this? I tend to think that that's the hype gone, It's going to be difficult to sell us on this guy as a top contender after seeing what Brunson just did to him then. Even if you put a couple of wins together, it would take a lot. It would take some big names to really get himself with that momentum again. Do you think a move to 170 could be good? I know Nico Price called him out. You could throw him against another big name like Mike Perry or something. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he needs to start taking his fighting more seriously, because even the coming in at 183 kind of shows that if he wanted to, he could probably make 170, and he's just not committed. He's not committed to really putting in the effort, putting in the camp and making that weight. So it kind of all goes in hand in hand, like someone weighing in at that much and then fighting like that. And he's got decisions to make. It's all about does he want to be the class clown, or does he want to be a serious contender at whatever weight he's at? Because it was it was bad all round, and you can just see Dana White on the sidelines. Dana White hates that type of stuff, and it's kind of why he didn't get into the UFC immediately after his contender series performance. So he won't be getting any main events soon. I think he's going to have to graft for everything he gets from now on, and I just don't. In terms of hype trains, he was a hype train, and we've seen, people stayed on the Sean O'Malley hype train, even though he lost pretty bad last time. It was a pretty embarrassing loss. This is even worse, in my opinion, because at least O'Malley took some damage and, went out on his back, getting absolutely, beat up. Holland just didn't even try, and I don't see anyone stay on this hype train now.
Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to break down there on that one. So we'll jump onto the co-main, which had Song Keenan taking on Max Griffin. Pretty impressive knockout from Griffin in this one. Don't know if I expected that to be the result, but hey, what a impressive move.
No, it was a good fight, a good 50-50 fight. Disappointing co-main event, but as you said, it's how it works out. And Max Griffin, he was saying post-fight how happy he was to be in this position, and he took absolutely full advantage of it. It was a beautiful straight right that hurt him initially, and you just see Keenan kind of back up and he's blinking, and then he didn't even get a chance to half recover because the 1-2 comes straight behind it, absolutely slept him, slumped him. And that's 2 in a row for Matt Griffin. Really impressive, and he's putting the wins together now. And in that spot, he's made the most of it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think you might have covered the bonuses. Did he end up getting a bonus for that finish?
Yeah, of course he did. He deserved it. It was a sweet knockout, and it was a competitive fight in my eyes. It was a good 50-50 fight. I didn't have really a clue who would win. I think I might have just pumped for Song when we spoke, but really it was a tough one. And Griffin, he made it look easy, and that's all you can ask of him. Yeah,
I thought I think I'm getting confused with the main and co-main here. Did Griffin have a call out? Like, did he have a big call out, or am I getting confused with Brunson?
Who did he? He did call someone out. Who was it?
I'm blanking on this. That's all right. That's right.
He was just saying like, oh, he was happy about the being co-main, and he was saying he cried, and then it was and then he was just dancing a lot. But yeah, I think he might have called someone out as well. Brunson called out Costa.
That's right.
Max Griffin might have called out someone. I can't think of who though.
That's all right. We'll move on from that one. Before that, we had the women's strawweights. Probably the most interesting after fight scenario in this one. And it was Cheyanne Buys versus Montserrat Ruiz. And Ruiz just dominated her, put her in the scarf hold or whatever it's called, that position, that judo one, slammed her to the ground and just managed to hold her there for pretty much the whole fight. When they were on the feet, Buys or Bays, I don't know how it's said, she just dominated. Like, she was the far superior striker, but Ruiz was just able to take it to where she was better. So that's how you win the fight, and that's what she did.
Yeah, it wasn't a great fight, was it? It was like it's lucky there's something after the fight, so we've actually got something to speak about, because this fight, I don't think anyone's stock particularly rises from this. It was all a case of someone maybe spat at someone, or someone maybe said something after the fight that it all kicked off again. But what did you make of it?
Hey, Ruiz. Oh, well, the afterfight stuff. Yeah, I thought that was weird. I didn't actually know what started it off. Maybe it was Ruiz mouthing off to Bays, or I didn't really see what happened. I just saw them yelling at each other. Bit ridiculous after you've just fought for 15 minutes and done pretty much nothing to be like, oh, let's go at it now. But as far as the actual fight, I thought Ruiz, because this is her debut, I believe, she reminded me a bit of like a Ronda back in the day, where she had one thing she was really good at, and she was like a technician at getting there. The difference, though, is Ronda was finishing people, and this Ruiz woman is just holding them there, so who knows?
Yeah, I think the after thing was, I think one of them called the other one a puta, and then the other one said that she maybe spat at her, but it was a weird one. It was probably the most interesting thing about that fight. I'm not going to be looking out for Ruiz next time she fights her, headlocks and things, whatever she's doing. It was one of them cards, we had these people in these positions, and it was a disappointing card, and that was one of the fights that was really, as expected. I didn't expect much, and we didn't get much.
Yeah, and before that, we had probably one of the better fights on the entire event, and that was Adrian Yanez against Gustavo Lopez. Pretty impressive striking matchup here. Lopez just fell short in this one. Yanez looked like a technician, managed to get him out there in the third.
Yeah, I love Yanez. He's one of the brightest prospects, I think, in that bantamweight division. He's very early in, but Gustavo was quite a tough test. He'd only lost to a decision to Marab, I think. Mm-hmm. So I knew he'd give Yanez the rounds, and that's kind of what he needed. His Dana White Contender Series fight and his UFC debut were over in a flash. So he needs the rounds, and he needs someone to drag him out. But he didn't go to the decision, and I like that. I like the fact that he eventually got the finish in the third round. He landed a perfect punch and absolutely slept Lopez. So Yanez, I'm on that train, and it's going to keep rolling. I think that was a big step up, and he passed with flying colours, and we'll get another one now. He's a very exciting prospect.
For sure. Before that, we had another big knockout. Tai Tuivasa returned and just demolished Harry Hunsucker. It was a quick fight. Wasn't very competitive. Just Tai looked way bigger and way stronger, and he put him out.
Yeah, and it's a nice one for Tai, really. Who was he originally meant to fight?
Was it Spivak?
It was Dante Mays, wasn't it?
Oh, Dante Mays.
So yeah, it was an easy night's work in the end, and no disrespect to Harry Hunsucker, but he went prepared for this moment, and you can't be on a few days' notice. But he, well done for getting up and answering the call. But for Tai, he just goes and he just gets his paycheck, and it was very easy. And on to the next one for him.
Yeah, it'll be good to see what they give him next. I'll throw it to you here. Do you want to grab any of these prelims?
Just the Grant Dawson one was probably the biggest moment of the night. He got 50K. He was down on the cards 2 rounds in. James Krause is in the corner with some amazing corner work, and he's saying, we need this finish. Trying to avoid the wrestling, which he didn't do, but he got the finish anyway. Grant Dawson goes back out. He wrestles Leonardo. He's a veteran. He apparently, before this fight, he hadn't lost since 2009.
Yeah,
which
crazy.
Is, crazy. And in the last few seconds, he decides to roll for a heel or a knee or whatever he was trying to do, and he just gets absolutely blasted. And they are high risk moves. It went them leg locks, and I know when they come off the sweep, but this is what happens when they don't. And he absolutely nailed them, and it was epic knockout. And Grant Dawson keeps the train rolling himself. Lightweight debut. I don't think he looked, even before the knockout, he didn't look out of his depth. It was just a tough fight against a tough veteran, and one of the biggest moments of the night. Brilliant from Grant Dawson.
Yeah, no, it was a very impressive knockout. I don't know if he was down 2 rounds. It would have been. Did you see scorecards? Was he down 2 rounds actually?
I think he was.
Right, because it was fairly close.
That was the talk. Yeah, that's what I mean. It was close, but I would kind of say he was down 2 rounds on my card.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue
and
that.
I think that was the talk about amongst the commentators and everyone there, is that he was down 2 rounds. So I'm sure they've seen them.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty impressive knockout. I don't know if he was ready to, because it was in the last 10 seconds, right? Yeah, it was 4:59. I think when the clapper went off, that Santos just grabbed his leg. I don't think he actually set up a heel hook and went for it. I think he just grabbed it to probably just to wait the time out. There's only a couple of seconds left, and he just got blasted and put out. So yeah, real impressive stuff. That's pretty much everything from that card. We'll jump onto news now if you're ready.
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. I think we'll grab this news now instead of doing it when we do the preview, because we might as well just do it fast in the preview. So Alexander Volkanovski out of UFC 260 after testing positive for COVID-19. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it seems like all that Australian contingents have all picked it up along the way, haven't they? Riddell was out. I think one more has pulled out as well. So yeah, disappointing. Hopefully, I don't know what the plan is now. What does Volkanovski do? Does he stay in the US and try and rebook it, or does he go home and do we have more of a longer layoff before we get this fight? I'm not sure what the plan is. Very disappointing. It's a good fight, but for me, I'm just glad it's not the main event, because that's what this card's hanging on, and I'm sure we'll book it back sooner rather than later. And best wishes to Volkanovski. Unlucky Brian Ortega. Hopefully we can get the book soon.
Yeah, and an interesting thing was that Brad Riddell didn't test positive. He tested negative multiple times. They pulled him from his fight because Alex tested positive, and they obviously came together and everything. So protocol, they just pulled him from his fight. But yeah, he hasn't actually tested positive for it, so hopefully he doesn't get it. Hopefully Alex gets rid of it. And I'd like the idea of him staying in the States, because when's next pay-per-view? That's the April one, isn't it? The Masvidal-Usman one. If you really wanted to make that a super card, you throw a fourth title fight on it, right? I can't see it happening, but could you imagine? That'd be really impressive. Yeah, but who knows what happens with that fight. Ortega obviously said the same thing. He will wait out till when Volkanovski's ready. I like the respect between these two guys. I like that there hasn't been any trash talking or trying to move on from each other. Yeah, hopefully we get that one soon, right?
Yeah. I'm just not sure how they do it. Can he stick around? Like, the best treatment might be in the UFC. Get them paying your bills, and what's the quarantine time if he flies back now? Is it 2 weeks or?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He might just be best hanging around, and some people are able to shake it off, some people aren't. If he sits in bed and chills for 2 weeks, he might be ready to go in 2 weeks after that. So let's see how it plays out. I hope it's sooner rather than later. The featherweight division's been held up for quite some time now, with Max kind of looms large over the division on Volkanovski. And it'll be nice to see him in there with someone else and see how he does against someone like Brian Ortega, who looked, fantastic last time out.
Yeah. Other big news that we had this past week, obviously Khabib officially retires, because Dana White says, though, funnily enough, Khabib came out after this and said, I retired 6 months ago, as we all know. What are your thoughts on the UFC accepting defeat on this one and giving up on the idea?
Yeah, it's best for everyone, isn't it? I think Khabib, he was flirting with the idea. I don't think it was all one-way traffic. As Dana kept saying, he's not saying no. He's not saying leave me alone. I think he was quite enjoying the chase, but now's the time to just walk away. And he's still involved. I've seen he wants to coach Luke Rockhold deal, and he'll be with Islam all the time. He'll still be around the organization, and he might come back down the road. But for now, I'm glad to see the belts free up, and we can start. This lightweight division's the best division in MMA, the UFC one, and I'm glad to see we can watch all these fighters kind of scrap it out now for the belt.
Yeah, and now obviously we've got the title fight that's booked, and that's Charles Oliveira taking on Michael Chandler. What do you think about that booking? Do you think it's the right one?
Yeah, it's the right one. Obviously Dustin is the top contender at lightweight, and I don't think anyone would argue with that. But Dustin has decided, I don't want a title shot. He said it after the fight. He said it. He said it multiple times. He went on Joe Rogan. He keeps saying, I want these money fights, and you can't hate him for that. He wants to fight with Conor McGregor, and then several million. I'm sure that's what he'll be getting. And he wanted Nate Diaz, and Dustin's entitled to go after these fights in the UFC. Why wouldn't he put it on? Because I guarantee you, Dustin Poirier against Conor McGregor 3 does more buys than Dustin Poirier against Oliveira or Dustin Poirier against Chandler. So, for me, the backlash against this title fight being booked is silly, because it's the obvious fight to make. As long as Dustin takes himself out the equation, this is the fight to make. And I think Oliveira's obviously deserving. And I think Chandler's, he's a big name. He's been a champion elsewhere. I think one win and going straight for the titles, kind of what you expect from a Bellator champion of his standard. What do you think?
I thought it was the right fight to make just because Dustin's out, right? If Dustin wasn't fighting McGregor, you'd throw him in there with an Oliveira, I think. But, Dustin, he wants to make money. Fair enough. but you can't put a belt on the line for that Conor rematch. You know what I mean? Because Conor's just lost. It wouldn't make sense to throw the belt in that one. So this, by proxy, is the one to do. It is a bit weird that Gaethje was offered this fight. He was training for this fight, and then the day of the announcement, he finds out that he's not fighting for the belt, and it's Oliveira. I don't think they offered him a title fight. I think they just offered him the fight with Chandler, and then once they knew Khabib was gone, they offered Chandler and Oliveira the title fight, which is fair enough. But it's interesting to think, where does Gaethje sit in all of this? Is he going to fight the winner of McGregor and Poirier? Is he going to fight the loser of the title fight? Is he going to get thrown another title shot? Because he really does need another one if these two other fights are happening at that same time, and I just don't know who there is. What do you think?
He's got work to do, Justin. I've got to be honest. Like, I was really disappointed with him in that title fight. It was too easy for Khabib. You know, I know he had some leg kicks and a couple of punches, but he was another one kind of similar to Kevin Holland, who we spoke about earlier. He had nothing on his back, and it was just, the fight was over as soon as he was on his back. So I think he's got work to do, and I think he's got more work than he thinks he's got to do. So I wouldn't mind seeing him in there with someone like Paul Felder or someone along them lines, and then another one after that. You know, maybe the Conor Dustin winner. Yeah, but he's a big name. He's going to be a player in this division. I just think I want to see him in there picking up wins again before he rushes back into these huge fights or title fights.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Lastly, I had something to say. I'm blanking on it. 262 is when this fight will take place, this title fight. I know they can't sell that pay-per-view on just these two fighters alone, the Chandler and the Oliveira. They need to have other fights in there. I imagine they'll put the Cheyanne versus Sterling rematch on that one as well. What do you think they do to build that card?
Yeah, well, you've got the featherweights. You could target that one as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's how that's going to look. I think you'll have 3 title fights. Maybe Nunes. Nunes wants a quick turnaround. If they can get Juliana Pena ready to go, I think that could slip on there as well. It's going to be a big card. It's going to be a huge card, I think, with the crowds coming back and things like that. Dana White, the UFC, they're going to be, it's going to be 3 title fights minimum, as you said earlier. You might even slip a 4th on these cards. So really excited to see. But as you said, that this fight isn't going to, be pushing the numbers and things like that. It's just not. And they're going to need back up these lightweights.
Yeah, I completely agree. And lastly, before we wrap this up and then preview 260 in a separate video, I'm just reading here on Twitter, Kevin Holland's eyeing a fight with Belal Muhammad. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like it. As we said last week, I don't think Belal should be rematching Leon. And for me, Leon needs to go on. And I know Belal was unlucky and it weren't his fault, but we didn't want this fight in the first place with Leon, so why would we do it twice, no matter what happened? Kevin Holland against Belal is a good fight because Belal, it's still a big fight, and it's probably high up on a main card of a pay-per-view, or probably a co-main event or main event of a fight night. So yeah, I like that. I'd like to see that fight at 170. It'd be fun.
All right, thanks for watching, guys. We'll wrap this one up here, but check out later in the week. We'll have the preview for the pay-per-view UFC 260 coming out as well. So thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.